Okay, I think we'll call this meeting to order and we will proceed. Now, I got doing a little research this morning and found an article about a very small number of scientists, disreputable, I believe, with the term they used in it. None of them are going to ever have a chance at a Nobel Prize. But anyway, these scientists have found that the center of Jupiter contains the letter I. Think about it. Okay, that's a bad joke. Okay. September 8th, the meetings are available on the members area of the website. Does anybody have any error or omission? Anything to say about it? Not seeing anybody. Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes from last month. Nobody. Well, Alan Dyer looks like he moved first. So Alan made the first motion. Seconder, Dennis. Yeah, okay. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next up on the list will be the treasurer's report from Jeff Whiteline.
Yeah, I don't know. I only need one.
I'll move.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick, as I do at each one of our members' meetings, a quick update on the center's financial situation. This is kind of an important thing. I don't say this often, but this is sort of the commitment to transparency to the members. So we like everybody to understand kind of where we're at and the fact that everything is out in the open. So there's no opacity to our financial statements. Anyways, it was a very busy month. From a transaction standpoint, probably the busiest month I've seen as the treasurer for the past 3 years or so, primarily due to the Star Party. Star Party just results in an awful lot of transactional activity. The general account, we started the month at 77,364 and we ended the month up a little over $3,000 at 80,737. Almost all of that gain came from the final round of Star Party fees. So almost $3,100 in fees came in during the month. We also had $650 come in from our membership dues and another $256 from our first quarter GST rebate check came in as well in the past month. On the casino side of things, we started the month at $106,000 and ended down about $3,000 at $103,500. Expenses, we're starting to see some things trickle in from the Planewave project. So there were some permitting fees that came in last month from the Planewave project. We're having a monthly fee for internet now out at BNLO now that that's been made operational. We had a few outreach brochures bought and accessories that go along with those brochures for about $575, and then some general maintenance costs out at BNLO. We also had a couple of our Northern Prairie Star Party speaker expenses come through for about $1,500. The Bob Drew Fund, which was established some years ago now by a donation from Bob for the specific purpose of capital improvements to the UDT and or the BAMT, was unchanged. It hasn't been. We haven't drawn down on that fund in quite some time now, so it's still unchanged from August 2025, and it's sitting at about $2,500. Questions?
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Frank, can you hit that little back button on the bottom right? And we'll get to our guest speaker. You can click on Alan's link there for me, please. On me. Okay. Our guest speaker tonight is Alan Dyer, and his topic is the Great Southern Sky. Best objects aren't visible from up north. And you have to get to the southern latitudes. And Alan's going to take us on a tour of that particular hemisphere. And we will see what he has to offer tonight, which will be most likely most fantastic. And I don't think Alan really needs a big introduction, but he is a renowned astrophotographer, author of numerous astronomy books and magazine articles, contributing editor to the Sky and Telescope magazine. His photos and videos have been featured on spaceweather.com, Astronomy Picture Today, Universe Today, Forbes, National Geographic, Time, NBC News, CBS News. In past years, before retirement, he produced planetarium shows for the theaters in Edmonton, Calgary, and Winnipeg.
Right here. Yeah.
Right here. Okay, without further ado, Alan, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Very good. Well, thank you very much to Sharon and Clayton for the invitation to speak. I thought you guys would have had enough of me because I gave the 2 presentations last month at the Northern Prairie Star Party, which I enjoyed immensely. Fabulous. Susan and Rick and Alan and Marion and everybody else. Great job. That was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for the invitation to speak there as well. That was great. However, when I got the invitation to give a talk here, and the last time I spoke to the club here in the Star Theater as one of your monthly meetings was, we were trying to recall, it was May 2013. So a while ago, was the night Chris Hadfield landed from his whatever 6-month sojourn on the space station where it became the internet sensation. And so we knew that was going to be happening. There was a live public webcast in the IMAX theater, but we had something in here. And I was speaking that night, and I timed my talk to finish up talking about the space station. And then we broke away to see that live webcast and then return to my talk. So that really worked out really well. Just the kind of thing you can do in a planetarium. Well, being here tonight and talking about the southern sky, yeah, I'm going to have PowerPoint slides and things like that for you. But we got to use the planetarium, right? So, Frank, we can take the lights off on stage. They don't need to see me. And I just need to see the ladies. Here we are. So what we're going to do to start off with, and then we'll go regular PowerPoint slides, is look at this beautiful sky above us here. This is the sky we're familiar with up here at our latitude. And we have it set, as you can see, for next March, middle of March, next year, but this could be any year at this time. But it's in March that I kind of suggest is a good time to go to the Southern Hemisphere. If you want to go to the Southern Hemisphere to see the best of everything, it's a good time to go, March or April or whatever. And I'll kind of demonstrate that here. That's the whole point. So here we are in mid-March, 9 p.m. We've gotten the sky dark, and we have the winter Milky Way above us here, and we're looking south, as you can see, here towards the south side of the theater here, and then Orion. And I'm not going to point out all these constellations, but you're pretty familiar with it. Well, we guess what we have. Do we have Jupiter up there at that time? I guess. And yeah, we'll have moved from Taurus, where it is now, or whatever, and all the familiar constellations you know and love, and the Big Dipper up over here, high in the north in the springtime here. All right, this is a wonderful sky. Oh, there we have. There's our planets. Oh, look, there's Uranus as well. Venus will be starting to come up into the evening sky by next spring or so. Okay, Frank, we'll turn on the wonderful automation system called Frank, and we'll see if we can now start to move south. We're going to go south from the latitude we're at by about 80 degrees. So anytime we can start our slow move to the southern hemisphere. Here we are. And we're going to move south by about 80 degrees in latitude and end up about 30 degrees south is where I asked Frank to set it for. So you can see we have the meridian here. And you can see Orion getting higher and higher. And over here, the Big Dipper and Polaris and the pole pointer, the red circle marks the North Celestial Pole, Polaris. And we've left our home latitude. We're now we crossed the border. We're into the United States, so don't arrest us now. And then 40 degrees, and we're going to continue on south through the United States, and we're just going to go straight south. We aren't necessarily going to Australia or Chile. We're just going to go straight south in longitude. And you watch as the whole new sky comes up here that we never see. And the sky in the north that we're familiar with disappears and drops below the horizon. Orion, now we're now at Arizona, southern Arizona. So even that latitude change, you see how much more we see and how better the stuff we do see is placed. It's just much higher in the sky, but now we're seeing down into Puppis and Vela. Some of the stuff I'll show you is accessible by just going to a more southerly northern latitude. But now we're into the tropics now. So you might be in that latitude if you go on a winter vacation to Mexico or Caribbean. But look at the pole pointer here, now 10 degrees north. And as soon as Polaris hits the horizon, that means you're on the equator. So here we are, just about reaching the equator. And now, look what's come up. We'll point these out once we get down there to our home latitude. But look where Orion is. It's overhead. And we're now below the equator. So there was an equator crossing there without any ceremony. We don't have to get you wet or whatever it is the ceremony is. And now, look, here's the South Celestial Pole coming up. Look what's around the South Celestial Pole. Nothing. It's really hard to polar line, but we have the Magellanic Clouds and all this southern sky stuff that we never see, that you may not even see very well from a northern latitude. And we're going to stop at about 30, I think it is, and which is kind of the latitude I go to in Australia, where most of the pictures I'm showing tonight were from. And so there we are, 30 degrees south latitude. And there we are. Okay, we're there. That's a lot better than a 15-hour flight to Australia, I can assure you. But look at the sky. You step outside, because you haven't had the advantage of seeing the sky change. You just step outside, all of a sudden, what am I looking at? Where is everything? And if you're an seasoned astronomer, as most of you are, sitting here in this theater, a big smile is something Terry Dickinson always said, a big smile should come over your face when you realize you don't recognize a darn thing. And you're starting all over again. What is all this stuff along the Milky Way? Here's Orion. There he is. He's upside down. And there's some northern constellations. I've got some slides for you to show you this, but there's the northern constellations. That's the first thing you do. You turn around and look north, and to recognize things, you got to stand on your head to see Orion, all our winter stars, and all our familiar constellations are upside down. So, well, those that are still left in the sky, but everything else to the south and overhead, well, to the south certainly, is all brand new. All right, Frank, let's slowly turn diurnal motion, because this is still early evening, 9 p.m. or something like that, on what is now an autumn night down in the southern hemisphere. So let's start there we go. We're seeing our time run ahead. And now we have the best part of the deepest south Milky Way overhead, over us, or climbing up high overhead. Remember, the South Celestial Pole was over here. So the whole sky is going to be turning around this point and is intact. And so this area here is the second brightest part of the Milky Way, next to the galactic core in Sagittarius and Scorpius, which is what's going to be rising here in a little while. So in a austral autumn evening, you have all this stuff below Orion, Puppis and Vela and Carina and Crux and into Centaurus. And what's coming up here? Well, gosh, my slide, I almost don't need my slides because this is showing it so much better. We have the dark emu arising here. In the aboriginal sky lore in Australia, the southern constellations are made up of dark stuff because that's what's so prominent. There's the head of the emu, her neck, it's a female, and then the body coming up. So the dark emu is rising up in the sky. So the whole sky is turning around. Here's the Magellanic Clouds, which you do see at that time of the year. It's not the best time, but you get them. But the small cloud you have to get early in the evening because it will not set, but it's going to get kind of low. The best time for them is 6 months later, but then you don't get the Milky Way as much. So we're getting all this wonderful stuff along the Milky Way. This is the Coal Sack. There's the Southern Cross, Alpha and Beta Centauri, and so forth. And now look what's coming up. The galactic core is rising over here. And look at Scorpius. This is Scorpius. We see him crawling along the horizon, not even seeing all of it. Here he is coming up head first on his side. And here's Scorpius. There's the tail. One of the few constellations really looks like what it's supposed to be. And here's the galactic core, the bright center of the galaxy. And then Sagittarius, here's the teapot. There's the teapot right there that we're familiar with, but it's coming up on its side. And we're still going through the night, 3 a.m. So you got to stay up all night to see the whole show. So, and now we got the whole Milky Way stretching across from what would be Puppis setting over here and up into Crux and Carina and Crux and Centaurus and Scorpius in the center of the galaxy, and then into the part of the Milky Way down here in the east that is back to the sky that we see from up north. But now there's Centaurus and Sagittarius, Scorpius. I don't know, he could throw up Aquila if we have that, and because that's just coming up now. So we're familiar with that. And we're familiar with what's above us, but boy, we don't see it like that. And this view right now, that whatever we are, 5:30 in the morning, that's the view to die for. This is where, if the astronomers were in the Southern Hemisphere, the European astronomers, they would have realized what the galaxy is and what it is we live in. And there's the view of this whole Milky Way. You lie back and it's the finest naked eye sky sight you can see in the sky. So there's our moon coming up. And so you want to go there when there's not a bright moon. And there we are. There's our, what would that be? Waning moon just coming up. So there we are. Okay. Well, we could do the whole show like that, I guess. But let's go to the slides now at that point. I hope to impress you that that's an impressive sky. Okay, that's fine. There we are. Okay, great southern sky. That's the topic. And flag of Australia and Chile. Those are the two main southern hemisphere locations I've been to. And some of the pictures, well, most of the pictures in this talk are from Australia. In fact, the very last trip I did last year. And there's the picture of what we just saw in the planetarium sky, in the early dawn sky, with that Milky Way all the way across the sky, and the great emu all the way across the sky there. Oops. Oh, I'm going backwards. No, I'm going forward. Okay, I'm sorry. That was my alignment slide. Now we get into, there we go. Sorry, you got to see that again. I forgot to tell Frank about those first couple of slides. I should have hidden those. There we are. Okay. We're going to spend most of the time in Australia and south of Capricorn. This is the Tropic of Capricorn in Rockhampton on the Queensland coast in Australia, the visitor center there. And a few years ago on one of the trips, I just happened to be there. There's some of the signs and the signpost when it was just a few days before summer solstice, or very close to summer solstice. I was there at Christmas time. And so from the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south on summer solstice, what am I saying? Yeah, it was summer solstice, December 21st. The sun is straight overhead, which is what the little sculpture is depicting. And there's no shadows, or the shadow is right underneath you. there. So that's what I'm pointing at there. The fact that the sun is supposedly in Capricorn. It's really not at that time. It's in Sagittarius, but it was. So that's where we're going to spend most of our time, south of Capricorn. And Chile, Namibia, and Australia, I would say the three big places to go to. And they're all at this magic latitude of about 25 to 30 degrees south latitude. Oh, there we are. Which is about 80 degrees. That's what we just traveled in the planetarium, about 80 degrees farther south than where we live. So the sky turns, as it just did, almost at right angles from what we're used to seeing. And so that magic latitude is where because of the way the air circulates around the world and the ocean currents, it's the driest and clearest area. There's a desert area up north as well, but that's where all the dry deserts are. So that's where you want to go. But it's also, as you just saw, where the Milky Way is at its highest when it comes straight overhead at that latitude. And that's the site you really want to see. So let's see if we can go on here. Here we are. Well, I've not been here. That's a picture that Alistair very kindly sent me last week from Namibia. He talked about this last month's meeting, and he will be talking to you more about his adventures in Namibia, an astronomy paradise, as you'll hear from Alistair at some point. You heard about it last week. It's on my bucket list to get there as well. Not that the sky would be different, but just the wonderful location. So that's a great spot. And there are, as Alistair worked at, spots just for amateur astronomers who want to gaze, and there's telescopes and knowledgeable people like Alistair to show around the sky. So a fantastic place to go is Southern Africa. In this case, what used to be Southwest Africa or Namibia. But let's see if we can go. Chile. Look at the Bordeaux class. One. As it would be. Where we're going to go here to San Pedro de Atacama. And there again is the Milky Way straight overhead. Whoops, I advanced too quickly. That's all right. So a location I've been to in Chile a couple of times, but not for quite some time now, because Sky News magazine, rest in peace, was running trips to Chile as part of Sky News magazine ventures. And it's 23 degrees south, so it's almost right on the Tropic of Capricorn, but fabulous. And this is a place called Atacama Lodge in San Pedro de Atacama, a spot in the north end of the Atacama Desert, which is, again, astronomy mecca, all kinds of telescopes that's run by Elaine Moret, a retired astronomer from one of the observatories, who uses it as an astronomy tourism mecca destination for people visiting the town to come out each night and do some stargazing, or for people like us who want to be there for several nights, staying there and using telescopes like this to explore the southern sky in relative comfort at his lodge. Let's see, I can get it advancing. There we are. So I was last there in 2011 with my little tracker here, and the town of San Pedro is a wonderful tourist town, very much geared to tourism, because there's the geysers and the high altitude lake and the pink flamingos and the crater valley of the moon, all kinds of touristy places to go to by day. But by night, it's a fabulous spot in the Atacama. And it's also home in that area to the Atacama Large Millimeter Array. I've never been there, don't expect to get there. It's up so high, only a few people with special permissions and access can get up there. It's up at 17,000, 15,000, 16,000 feet, something like that. You need oxygen to get up there. But it's very much an astronomy mecca for observations. In the valley, at San Pedro de Atacama, you're still at 2,400 meters in the valley, but you're not up so high that breathing is difficult. But up that passage, that road that you see going over the pass into Bolivia, you need oxygen to travel that road just about. And that volcano, like Cancaber, is just a landmark. There's all kinds of volcanoes in that area, but that's the landmark you see to the east of you there. And so it's a beautiful spot. And here's one thing we didn't really show in the planetarium, but the ecliptic stands straight up. So you got 3 planets all in a straight row, straight up from the horizon in the dawn sky over the volcanoes. And then on a May, last time I was there was May, autumn night. So it's in autumn. It can start to get cold there. Same with in Australia. In their winter, June, July, it can get cold. You have to be prepared that you, just like a spring night here, an autumn night here, it can get chilly. Well, you were in Chile. Down to freezing or something like that. But you have this incredible view. These are fisheye views of the Milky Way and us observing. And in fact, the last time I was there, a former Edmonton Center member and former employee of the QEP, Gary Finley, and I, we were busy observing with the 18-inch telescope we rented for the night and just busy exploring through all incredible deep sky objects that I can remember us looking at there. So a fabulous time to just gorge out on southern sky observing. So it's a great spot to go if you want to head to a lodge that really is designed. And there we are. That's the website there. So it's called SPACE, which stands for San Pedro de Atacama Celestial Explorations, but it's also the Atacama Lodge. And there's telescopes you can look through each night, but also ones you can rent and have for your exclusive use as well. And even some astrophoto gear, but I've always taken a tracker. So it's a good spot to plan, but it's nice if you want to go there, to go with 3 or 4 friends so you can all have a lodge to yourself there. It works out really well. Now, at the duty going, we're going to go to Australia, which is where I have some optimized. As you speak, I have fellows. Look at the Bordeaux class. We're not far from Sydney, where I'm going. You don't have to go into the deep outback. You really don't. Get dark. You don't have to go very far at all. So there we are. Australia. There we are. That's where we're going to go. What am I observing? Near a town called Coonabarabran. And there's the dark emu rising over the southern coast. In this particular case, I was driving along the Gippsland coast in southern New South Wales, and we're going to go there to a star party, which I'm wearing the T-shirt of, the OzSky Star Party. And class 1, just outside, a few miles outside a town, little town called Coonabarabran. And Coonabarabran is built itself. Sorry. Before we go there, we're going to spend time in Sydney. I always have to spend a little time in Sydney. Go down to Sydney Harbor and have my traditional Canadian breakfast. That's what that is at the City Extra on Circular Quay. Go up to the observatory and then wander down through the rocks and have my pint of beer at the Lord Nelson. There, Steve, if you're watching, that beer is for you. Okay. Anyway, spend always a little time in Sydney just to get it acclimatized and get back to the right time zone and all that. So there's all kinds of wonderful sites, of course, in Sydney itself. And go there on July 22nd, 2028. That's what you'll see. That's a simulation. And this appeared on the solar eclipse mailing list. I forget the gentleman who took that, so I'm using it online. But that's a simulation of what we'll see. A total eclipse of the sun over Sydney Harbor in the middle of their winter in 2028. So I'm planning on being there. But you don't have to be in Sydney. It crosses all of Australia. But what an incredible view that would be. And I'll just put a plug in here. I have ebook out about autophotograph the coming eclipses, because there's 3 in a row for the next 3 years in 2026, 27, and 2028 in Australia. All right. So let's now, yes. The place I go for my dark sky observing is here, the astronomy capital of Australia. Coonabarabran, there I am. Selfie with this welcome sign there. And because it's home to the Siding Spring Observatory, the biggest optical observatory in Australia. In fact, one of the well, I guess now with the big scopes in Chile, it's small compared to the big scopes that are in Chile. But Coonabarabran is a neat town on the Newell Highway, junction of the Newell and Oxley Highway. Nice watch clock tower there, neat Art Deco architecture, and the Imperial Hotel. Every town in Australia has an imperial or a royal hotel, looks just like that. That's where, well, I don't know if they still do, but I've spoken in that hotel to the Astronomy Club in Coonabarabran. And all right, let's and as I say, it's the astronomy capital because it is home to the Siding Spring Observatory. It's like the Kitt Peak, if you've been there in Arizona, of Australia. All kinds of telescopes on the mountain top. The biggest one being the 4-meter now Australian Astronomical Telescope. It was the Anglo-Australian telescope, but England pulled out of that a few years ago. So it's the AAT 4-meter class telescope, like the CFHT in Hawaii, our Canadian telescope, or the Mayo telescope in Kitt Peak, all built in that same era of 4-meter telescopes and still doing cutting edge work. And I had the wonderful privilege of a nice tour when I was there in March in 2024. At Siding Spring. And when I first went there with Terry Dickinson, Klaus Brosch, and Mike Meyerchuk, the 4 of us, the Cuatros Amigos, we called ourselves. The first time I'd been to Australia, we stayed at this little, let's see if I can find it there. Over here, this little building beside the water tower here. Well, what was the director's cottage? But many of these buildings burned in the bushfire in January 2013. Not the telescopes, they saved those. But that's the new residence that's built. But we stayed there, or what was there at one time, a director's house, cottage. We were very lucky to have the use of that for our visit there. And then in that area, just down the hill from where we just were, is iTelescope, one of their installations for the robotic telescopes that you can rent. And I'm subscribed to this. Some of the pictures later in the talk will be taken with one of those telescopes. I don't know which one, but I've used one of those telescopes remotely from here. But it's always interesting to visit and seeing the iTelescope installation. And they gave me a great tour around when I was there. But just down the road, there's all kinds of astronomy attractions because down the road, well, 2 or 3 hour drive down the road, Newell Highway, is the Parkes radio telescope. Muriang, the Dish. This is the Dish. You've seen the movie The Dish. This is the wonderful radio telescope that brought us the first pictures of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. Came through the radio telescope here. And there's a wonderful movie about that story. A little dramatized, but not too far off reality. And so it's worth a visit, certainly by day. I have a tour around the Dish. They have a beautiful visitor center there. So there's that to visit, not far away as well. Now, when I was there last March, or a year ago March, this was my accommodation for the first week I was there. A cottage called Mirrabrook Cottage, and it's astronomy paradise. I mean, it's just fantastic. Dark skies. You have the place to yourself. There's all my gear unpacked, trying to sort out and take stock of everything. Is everything working? Some of that stuff had been stored there for 7 years. Is it all still working? Other stuff I brought with me. You got the ruse to keep you company. And a fabulous spot. And so you can I like to rent a cottage like that. But for the second week I was there, I moved down the road to the Warren Bungalows Motel and the location of the Oz Sky Star Safari. And I've been to that Star Safari probably more than anybody else other than the people that have put it on in terms of how frequently I've been there since the early 2000s. I think they said 8 times or whatever. I can't remember. And it's fabulous because the guys who put it on bring all these telescopes. You've got all these telescopes at your disposal, and there's only about 35 people attending. It's a very exclusive star party. It's not like the Northern Prairie or whatever, where, a whole club comes out. It's just for people who come mostly from the United States, but we had people from Israel and Korea there around the world, but it's mostly from people from elsewhere to come and enjoy. And you have these telescopes at your disposal that have all been bought and paid for and supplied to the fellows who put it on. And the smallest is a 14-inch. And they're all equipped with the Argo Navis computers to help you find things. And if anything's gone wrong with them, no problem, because the guy who invented it, Gary Koff, is right there at the star party, showing you how to use it. And that's the rig I brought for my astrophotography. The mount had stayed in Australia for 20 years. I brought it back with me that year and used it the next month of the eclipse with the little Sharp Star 61, which I had brought with me that time, and it came back with me. And I had that on the sales table at the Northern Prairie Star Party, but nobody bought it. But a wonderful telescope, and many of the pictures I'm showing this evening were taken with that rig right there. So it's a great spot to do astrophotography. These are the folks that was the group photo. So you can see how many there are. Not that many. So there's a telescope for every 2 or 3 people. And you glom on to somebody who wants to kind of look at the same stuff you do, and you've got it for the whole week. And it's great. And you've got incredibly knowledgeable observers like John and Andrew and Lachlan who can show you stuff you wouldn't have thought to look at. You didn't know existed. Once you get past the first couple of nights of what we call eye candy, you know, the really bright stuff, which I'm going to show you here. But you get into the obscure stuff. And it's great. The call comes out from John. Anybody want to see 47 Tucani? Everybody rushes over and looks at it. And so that's the one I can recommend. It's a great spot. And last I checked a couple of days ago, there were still a few spots open for next year's star party. You got to get yourself there. But once you're there, you're pretty well taken care of. So ozsky.org. And I highly recommend it. If you want to explore the sun and the sky, because you don't have to go with anything, really. They get all the telescopes. When to go? I'm saying March. You can go our summer, but their winter. The Milky Way core is overhead all night, or for most of the night, but it can be cold. In their spring, it's galaxy season, just like our spring is galaxy season. Great for the Magellanic Clouds and southern galaxies, but the Milky Way is not ideally placed. In the midsummer, January, February, you have the deep south Milky Way I'll show you, but it's hot in Australia. It's just hot. But March, April is the best of everything in the sky, as we just showed you with the planetarium, and it's just right. The observing conditions are... You realize it doesn't get any better than this. This is it. I give up my observing when I go home. There's no point because it's as good as it's going to get. It's just warm and it's dry and there's no bugs. There might be snakes, though, however. What to take, though? If you go to something like OzSky, at least you got to take binoculars. Take binoculars because so many of the sky sites down in the southern hemisphere are fabulous in just binoculars. You don't need anything more. Big binoculars, great if you can carry them, but any binoculars. If you want to do something more telescopic, a small go-to mount would be helpful to help you find things, but it's an awful lot to cart. But it's possible, or just a little alt-azimuth mount, because many of the objects are big and bright. They're easy to find and aim a telescope at. But a little go-to and a 60 mil refractor for visual or for photographic will certainly work as well. But what you got to take is a beginner skybook. You're back to being 12 years old and learning the sky for the first time. And you need a basic star charts as to what these constellations are and where things are. And so don't neglect something like that. And there are some books dedicated just to the southern sky, as I show there in a couple of the titles. But even Night Watch has the southern sky charts as well. So you got to take something like that just to get familiar with what's up there. And all right. For astrophotography, really just a tracker is maybe all you really need, because so much can be shot with a wide angle lens or a short telephoto lens, and you can get lots of photographs like I'm showing in the background with just a tracker and a good camera and lens. But just be aware, laser pointers are illegal in Australia. It doesn't matter if you're a member of Astronomy Club. No, they're illegal. I smuggled one in. and use it, because boy, it sure makes aligning on the South Celestial Pole much easier. But take finder charts for the South Celestial Pole to help you locate a little pattern of stars around Sigma Octantis to polar line, because polar lining is the challenge down there. Once you polar line, you don't want to move the mountain. Get it? And watch out for this, as I found out with the little move, shoot, move nomad, you're aiming to the south most of the time. That's where the good stuff is, but that's where you're polar aligned. And as the tracker turns, things can collide. And that happened to me, and that shut down the nomad and shut it off. And like, it was done for the trip. Luckily, I had a second tracker with me as a backup. So be careful of that. And what I should have taken was this, a V plate. So now I can put the camera on a horizontal platform and aim to the south without fear of collision. So just a tip, if you do want to use a tracker in the southern hemisphere. All right, let's go observing. Enough preamble here. Let's actually take a look at a few things here. And this is a tour of the sun, the sky, using images I shot mostly March 2024. Okay, there's the sky we started the planetarium show with. Orion, Canis Major at the bottom, and Gemini above it. The sky we see in winter here, we're familiar with it, except that's upside down. This is what we actually see. So that's out the front door of the cottage looking north here in this case. And that's what you're faced with, is everything's upside down, as we saw in the planetarium sky. And this is Sirius, now high overhead. And Orion, well, he's standing on his head. He's upside down. Oops, there he is, there. And Betelgeuse and Rigel are familiar stars in Orion. And the belt stars still point over to Sirius, but they point up. And then the belt stars point down. Here, there we go. Point down to Aldebaran in Taurus, and the Pleiades low on the northern horizon. And then Pollux and Castor are over here, low in the north, and Gemini and Procyon between them, and Sirius there. And what's that bright star over in the east to the right there? Well, that's Regulus. Whoops, we're disappearing. In Leo the Lion, coming up in the spring sky. So that's a novelty. But well, first of all, I'm going to blow up and show you a couple things. Here's Orion, and a deep shot of Orion taken from that location. And now we'll blow up here, and we'll show you one of the asterisms down there is the belt of Orion, the sword. It's called the saucepan. So when you see it in the sky, that's what it looks like. So that's the saucepan. There's all kinds of little asterisms like that we can see, but we don't see them like that. And they're unknown to us. But the Southern Hemisphere observers say, yeah, that's the saucepan. Oh, okay, what? And so there it is in the belt and the sword of Orion. However, we're not here to see upside down northern sky stuff. You don't go down there. You want to see that. The sky of superlatives. This is the deepest south section of the Milky Way in Carina and Crux. And in that area of sky is, let me see if I got it here, the best globular cluster, the best known constellation, Crux. You say, okay, well, what do you mean by the best known constellation? Well, because, let's see if it comes up if I click. It's on the flag of Australia, and some other flags I'll show you a little later on as well. So it's very well known to everybody in the Southern Hemisphere. And, oops, well, we're skipping ahead here. The best emission nebula, the best open cluster, the second best open cluster, the best double star, the second best double star, the best dark nebula, the second best dark nebula, and what I might call the strangest planetary nebula. Not necessarily the best, but the strangest. The spiral planetary in Musca the Fly. It looks like a spiral galaxy in the eyepiece. It doesn't look like our ring nebula kind of thing. Very odd. Incredible object. Now, you can argue if this is the best or not the best or whatever, but nevertheless, these are among the best of their class in that one area of the sky. And that's what you go to see there. Let's see if we can fade them out here. There we go. There they are going off. All right. So now let's just take a little bit more of a tour. I'm going to zoom away here. Now we'll get the wide angle Milky Way panorama. The southern Milky Way. You can recognize Orion to the right and the galactic core way to the left there. And there's Orion and Canis Major. We see those. Puppis is below Canis Major. Vela, Carina, Crux, Centaurus, Scorpius, and Sagittarius. And that's the whole sweep of the southern Milky Way. From the known to the known, but in between is what we can call, let's see, we got a kind of a stella incognita, because we can't see any of that from where we live. You might see some of that from a tropical northern latitude, but we can't see any of that stuff. It's all new to us. So that's what we're going to take our time and explore here a little bit. Now, you can see Orion over there to the right and recognize some of the nebulas in Orion that we photographers are fond of shooting. But, oops, I kind of skipped past it there. There was this great big nebula in the Milky Way, and we've zoomed up there to it. And that's not something you see visually, but it's something that's fairly easy to photograph. It's the Gum Nebula. There's many Gum Nebulas, but that's the one we kind of call the Gum Nebula, is Gum 12, and it's 30 degrees wide, 1,500 light years away, and nobody quite knows what it is. Is it a supernova remnant? Is it a star-forming region? Is it a big bubble blown by hot stars? No one quite seems to have sorted out. But it's over there in that part of the sky which contains Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, and Canopus, the second brightest star in the night sky, which you can see from a southern latitude of the northern hemisphere. But those are right overhead from the southern sky. So that's the Gum Nebula. And in the Gum Nebula is this thing. We're just going to zoom up here. There we are. And that's the Vela supernova remnant. So that is a supernova remnant. That's definitely, in fact, I think the pulsar that was created is being identified. And that's with a telephoto lens. So that's 15 by 10 degrees. That's with a 135 millimeter telephoto lens, 900 light years, remains of a supernova from 11,000 years ago. Incredibly complex nebula. I mean, supernovas do not blow up nice and neatly. They scatter stuff all over the place. And just for those who are familiar with the Veil Nebula here, that's the Veil Nebula, which we have up north, in the same scale, same lens used to take that, just in fact last month. So that's the Veil Nebula we have in Cygnus, which is a beautiful object. But look how much smaller it is because it's farther away, 2,400 light years away, and remains of a supernova from 15,000 years ago. So just by comparison, and we'll go back here to the Vela supernova remnant here. Now, this is a challenging target visually. It can be seen, but it's a challenging target visually. It's tougher and fainter. It's bigger and fainter than the Veil Nebula up north. But I have seen it in a 10-inch reflector, which I had down there for many years. In fact, it's still in Australia. I've sold it and it's changed hands a couple of times. One I bought from a fellow in Edmonton. And I remember a few years ago, Dwight Hansen was making telescopes. I bought one from him, took it to Australia 20 years ago. And I observed it through a 10-inch, but it's a tough one to see through a small telescope, but it's certainly interesting to photograph. And here we're going to zoom in on that. Now, this is with the little sharp star or refractor I showed you. So this is a close-up of the Vela supernova, and that's the brightest part. That is easier to see with a smaller telescope. The Pencil Nebula, or called Herschel's Ray, because John Herschel, who pioneered much of the observing and discovery of the Southern Hemisphere objects in his stint in the 1840s in Cape of Good Hope, discovered that and added it to what became the NGC catalog. That's the brightest part of the Vela supernova remnant. But I remember one night, and we had the picture of it earlier on, of Gary Finley and I using the Palomar Sky Survey plates in Chile and tracing out visually, going down, down, down the little arcs and picking out all the little arcs and twisty bits of the Vela supernova remnant. So that's really neat. That's where it is, right in Vela. And that part of the sky in Vela and Puppis above it is what I call cluster country. And so we're gonna work our way from right to left here, spending a little time in Vela and Puppis here, first of all, because there's all kinds of neat open star clusters, which are easy objects. They are binocular objects, even naked eye objects. We'll zoom in on two of them here in Puppis. The double clusters in Puppis. Now, two of them are Messier objects, so we can see those. Charles Messier could see them from Paris. We know these, M46 and M47, but just south of them are two others that are kind of similar. NGC objects, 2451 and 2477. And like the Messier pair, one is very rich and fainter, but one is very bright and looser. A neat contrasting pair of open clusters. Maybe naked eye, but certainly binocular objects, no problem, and great for a small telescope. Beautiful star clusters, just a little bit further down the Milky Way, which is not too far deep south. Though we'll zoom back out again, and there are several Southern Crosses. You've all heard of the Southern Cross, the very famous Southern Cross. There it is. I've just drawn it. Crux, the Southern Cross, there. But in a little further up the Milky Way, that's where it is. Famous constellation. There's many of the flags of the Southern Hemisphere, countries and counties or districts, islands that have the Southern Cross on their flags as well, and including the Christmas Island there. So it is very famous down there. How many people have seen it? I've seen it from downtown Sydney. It's visible, it's bright. However, what people often see and think is a Southern Cross is, let's see if we advance here. There it is, the false cross. It's not as bright, but it's a little more obvious, bigger, but it's not a constellation like Crux. It's made of two stars in Vela and two stars in Carina. It's an asterism, the false cross. But it is very obvious, and I'm going to show you a couple of clusters that are right nearby it. And then in the middle, and I've not heard many people talking about this, I just called it a Carina cross. The third cross, the middle cross. There's another 4 stars in Carina, which seem to form a very distinct cross to the naked eye as well, but upside down, sort of. So there's at least 3 Southern Crosses in the southern sky, but only one that's the true Southern Cross, Crux. All right, now we're going to zoom in on the false cross. I think here we go. Here we go. We'll take a close up here. And zoom up, and this is a telephoto lens shot. So similar to what a binocular would show you. There's the false cross. That's Avior. That's in Carina, that star. And then the other top 2 stars are in Vela. But look, right off Avior to the right, and at the top are 2 bright star clusters. And those are naked eye. And certainly great. I see 2391 right there. And NGC 2516 right there. Now, these are deep exposures to bring out nebulosity. You won't see the nebulosity, but the clusters are very easily visible naked eye or binoculars. So just taking binoculars, you can see so many of the great southern sky sites down there. So zoom back out again. We're working our way along the Milky Way. And now we get to that southern spectacular field where all that best of stuff is. Whoops, there we are. And there's Crux there, and very distinctly colored stars. Gamma Cruxus at the top, very orange star. And you can see there's the 4 stars of the cross, but there's the 5th one off to the bottom right, and that is included on many of the flags. That's Epsilon Crucis. So there's the southern, what I call the southern spectacular, because there's just so much in that field. The Carina Nebula, NGC 3372, the Southern Pleiades, another bright naked eye star cluster, the Running Chicken Nebula, Can you see the running chicken? No, well, get a close-up of them in just a moment here. The pearl cluster, the football cluster, the gem cluster up there. The Aussies call that the football cluster. So to me, that's the football cluster. But I'll show you a picture that does have some other names. And then the running chicken nebula, IC 2944. But these beautiful star clusters, gem, pearl, jewel box cluster over there, are really neat because they are multicolored. They always have, all of these clusters seem to have many different stars of different colors. So it is really like a jewel box, is what John Herschel described it as. And so this is a credible field for binoculars. So we'll fade out our labels here, and I think we zoom up. It's a rich field of binoculars, and it is the farthest south, the lowest in declination. So it is possible to see this like from the Florida Keys, but low in the south there. Now, let's see if we can zoom in on a couple of things here. This is the Carina Nebula, and I think you can argue this is the best nebula in the sky. No, the Orion Nebula is pretty good, obviously. But this thing, of course, this is full color. But this thing is incredibly large, it's naked eye, and incredibly structured and detailed with all kinds of dark lanes throughout it as well. And then in the middle of it is the star Eta Carina itself. And it's a star that's a candidate for a supernova. It almost went supernova in 1840 when John Herschel, or 48, whenever it was, John Herschel was observing the Cape of Good Hope and got very bright, like one of the brightest stars in the night sky, and that's faded back. But it's a candidate to really blow up real good at some point. And it's, you look at it and it's golden yellow, because if you can put a really big aperture telescope on it, you see that. Now, that's an image from the Hubble Space Telescope, but you do see that. You see the star with these two lobes, golden yellow lobes, that is a part of the explosion, the material blown off, whatever, in the 1840s. It's called the Homunculus Nebula. And you've never seen anything like that through your eyepiece, but that requires a pretty big aperture, not because it's faint, it's just very small. You need pretty good aperture and really high power. You could look at Eta Carina and not realize it's there, except that it looks a little fuzzy. Blow it up, you see this really strange double-lobed exploding nebula. And that's where the next supernova could well be, perhaps, when that thing finally decides to let off. And so that's the Carina Nebula. Now, I think I crossfade here. Oh, there's the football cluster. There. And John Herschel called this one of the finest clusters he'd ever seen. It's also called the Black Arrow Cluster. I'm not sure if you can see it there, pointed out here on this screen and over here. There's a little dark lane down the middle of that cluster. And at the end of it is another arrowhead-shaped dark lane. And that's why it's called the Black Arrow Cluster, is another name for it. But the Aussies call it a football cluster. It's, well, like an oblong football, kind of like our football as well. And then there's a gem cluster up above there as well. Okay. And then let's see if I go here. I think a remarkable field, binoculars, a small telescope. Do I go? Yes, here we are. We can brighten the images up again, Frank, if you like. That's fine. That's still a little more structured what you see with through the telescope, but now you see black and white, and you can see all that structure. It's an incredible object to look at, and much larger than the Orion Nebula as well. So even in a small telescope, it's a great sight. Okay, we can zoom away back here, and then below it is the Southern Pleiades, IC 2602, nice bright blue cluster, or the Theta Carina cluster as well, with all kinds of dark nebulas in that same field. This is really in a rich part of the Milky Way. And then, Running Chicken Nebula. There it is. There, here he is. Here she is, the Running Chicken Nebula. Two other gum nebulas for her head and her feet, and the body, IC 2944. And the Pearl Cluster, which is a beautiful object. And this field in a wide field telescope with a 1 or 2 degree field, 2 or 3 degree field, incredible. beautiful nebulas and clusters and dark lanes, all contrasting. And right next to one of the other bright nebulas. And then you get to the dark nebula, the coal sack. This is one of the most prominent dark nebulas in the sky. But when you throw binoculars at it, it breaks up into all kinds of tendrils and structure, whereas the eye looks like just a single dark mass. And then above it is the jewel box cluster, another bright and multicolored cluster next to B Crux. And then A Crux, down the bottom of the Southern Cross, is an incredible double star, magnitude 1.4 arc seconds apart. It's kind of like Castor in the Northern Hemisphere, I guess. But you have to put some power on it. You look at it and you might not realize that it's a double star until you put some power on it. You realize, oh, there are two stars there. Pretty neat. So it's just one of the brightest and most striking double stars in the sky. So that's A Crux at the bottom. And then B Crux at the top, I don't show it here, I don't have a good picture of it, has got a little ruby red companion right next to it called Ruby Crucis. And it's a beautiful contrast to the bright blue star and this beautiful fiery red little companion star sitting right next to it in the field. Ruby Crucis is what the Aussie astronomers call it. So let's see, we go on and, jukebox we already talked about. There we go. So, and then in the area, nearby in the area, above Carina Nebula is this star called Chi Velorum, and that's Albireo Australis. That's the southern hemisphere. Albireo, that we know well in the beak of the swan, the beautiful yellow and blue star, that's the same kind of yellow and blue double star. Very bright, easy, but a little off the beaten path and not necessarily well known. But it is to the Aussie astronomers Albireo Australis, they call it. And then down below that area is the dark doodad. This is a dark nebula in Musca the Fly. Once you get off the Milky Way, the constellations become really obscure. But anyway, it's got this dark nebula with a beautiful globular cluster right at the end of it. In fact, there's another little one next to it as well. But that's a really great field in Musca the Fly, the dark doodad. Now we'll zoom away and move on up the Milky Way from the Carina Crux area there into Centaurus. The wonders of Centaurus. Now, Centaurus is an ancient constellation because much of it could be seen from ancient Greece, where many of those constellations that we use were made up. And especially whatever 2,000 years ago or whatever 2,500 when precession brought it up higher in the sky above the Mediterranean Ocean. But and so Centaurus is not, but Crux, stars of Crux used to belong to Centaurus, but they were broken off as a separate constellation in the 1500s when the first Europeans kind of traveled to the southern hemisphere. But now we'll look at a close-up of his Centaurus, not the whole constellation, but the two famous stars, Alpha and Beta Centauri. And Alpha Centauri is 4.3 light years away. It's the closest star system to ours. Beta Centauri is much farther away. People think this is the double star. No, Beta Centauri is much, much farther away. It's not associated with Alpha Centauri, but they are next to each other in the sky. It's Alpha Centauri, which you put some power on, that's the double star. And 9 arc seconds apart, so a little farther apart than A Crux. But this is, what is the third brightest star in the sky? Something like that is a bright double star. And these are two sun-like stars. And the debate continues whether there's any planets orbiting one of those stars. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. It's really difficult for our modern telescopes to tell because these stars are too darn bright. It swamps the detectors. So the latest that there is a Jupiter-sized planet orbiting Alpha Centauri A, I think, which is the more sun-like star. I'm not sure. Anyway, but it is a beautiful double star. And so that's what you do need a telescope to kind of see and pick out and appreciate. One of the best in the sky. And then in Centaurus is an object which is cataloged as a star, Omega Centauri. And there it is. It looks like a star, except in the eyepiece. Even binoculars it resolves. But in any telescope, it's, oh my God, Centauri. It's now even thought that it's not a globular cluster. It's actually a galaxy, a dwarf galaxy. And it is just a splash, an explosion of thousands, well, millions, I suppose, but incredible number of stars in any telescope. But boy, when John says, anybody want to see Omega Centauri in the 24-inch telescope? Yeah, it's incredible. But any telescope is amazing to see Omega Centauri, jaw-dropping. And so that's, oh, and nearby is one of the best galaxies in the sky, and you see 5128. That's the Hamburger galaxy. Okay, can you see the hamburger? You see the buns and the meat? And then John will show you, anybody want to see the lettuce? There's a little thin line of light down the middle of the dark lane. That's the lettuce in the Hamburger galaxy. And that's the kind of stuff the guys at OzSky can point out to. You wouldn't have heard of that before. And so that's a very bright, well, binocular object, but and a big telescope, amazing. Same with this one right nearby, and you see 4945. And these shots I took through iTelescope, one of the iTelescope remotely, because I don't have a telescope down there big enough aperture and big enough focal length to really do justice to these objects in the southern hemisphere sky. So those are within binocular field of each other. All these globular clusters in the southern hemisphere, and we're counting M22 there, which we can see. All of these are better than M13. M13 and the Hercules, forget it. This thing, these are incredible. Omega Centauri. And then there's, and then some of these other ones they're all quite different as well. But there's the one in Sagittarius, and it's near the Corona Australis, and Pavo, Ara, Vela, Sagittarius, Musca, pointed that out. Carina, 2808, that impressed me last time. That was great. But this guy here, let's see if we can zoom up on. There we go. 47 Tuck. Now, if Omega is not a globular cluster, then this is certainly the finest globular cluster in the sky. It is very dense in the core. It's a different type. I mean, it's a different class of globular. It's a very densely packed core rather than loosely packed like Omega. And it's just incredible to look at. And scintillating as well in many cases, and look where it is. It's sitting right next to this thing, the Small Magellanic Cloud. It doesn't belong to the Small Magellanic Cloud. It's just in that same area of the sky. It's much closer to us than the Small Magellanic Cloud, which is 200,000 light years away. It's a satellite galaxy of our Milky Way. And there's another very decent globular cluster nearby, 362. Nothing to sneeze at there, but everything pales in comparison to 47 Tuck. And then it's got nebulas in the cloud, the brightest being NGC 346. And those nebulas in the clouds are weird. They're mostly oxygen. They're green, so they respond to an O3 filter. And they're not bright red emission nebulas, even though there are objects like that in those clouds. But many of the nebulas in the Magellanic Clouds are these green oxygen emitting nebulas for whatever the physics is out there. Whoops. I think we crashed or something there. We skipped. Let's see if we can go back to the show. I don't know if I hit the wrong button or something. All right. Okay. There's the southern Milky Way just rising. Oh, no, we want to go a little farther on to the Magellanic Cloud, Small Magellanic Cloud. All right, we're getting there. I'm skipping through these globular clusters. There we go. Zoom up and then zoom out. Okay, we'll stay there just for a moment. That's good. That's good. So this is the Small Magellanic Cloud, and it's rich in objects. But pretty soon you just, forget it. Small Magellanic Cloud, because you want to move on. Well, first of all, there it is on a March night. So a naked eye to the south, around the south celestial pole, 47 Tuck in next to it, next to the Small Magellanic Cloud. And then here's Alpha and Beta Centauri. Those are the pointer stars because they point to Crux. So they're called the pointer stars. And there's Omega Centauri. And one way you can find the south celestial pole is to draw that line from the pointers to Crux and draw a line, if I've got it here, draw a line, there we are, perpendicular to it and through the long arm of the Crux, and it intersects kind of at where the south celestial pole is. So that gets you in the area of a constellation called Octans, and there couldn't be a blanker, dimmer constellation in the sky than Octans the Octans. But that's where the south celestial pole is, where you have the polar line to. But then above it is the Large Magellanic Cloud, which spreads over Doradus and Mensa. Mensa, the Table Mountain, is a good article in the Current Sky Telescope about that constellation. And so that's what's in the southern part of the sky. Now we'll zoom up. Oh, there it is. Just a close up there, but we'll zoom up there. We zoom up to the Large Magellanic Cloud. Now this is taken through filters, so it really pops out the nebulosity. Yet you can see much of that stuff in the eyepiece, especially with a nebula filter of some kind. There's so much stuff. You cannot figure out what's what. Well, astronomers have spent their lifetime studying the Large Magellanic Cloud. You could spend many nights just on the Large Magellanic Cloud, especially with a big telescope. It's 160,000 light years away. It's rich in nebulas and star clusters and all kinds of interesting fields. The second brightest nebula is called the LMC Lagoon, is one name given to by one Southern Hemisphere observer, NGC 1763. But the biggest one is the Tarantula Nebula, NGC 2070 over there. See how green that is. But it's incredibly confusing because no two star charts agree as to what's what. Nebulas can look like clusters. Clusters can look like nebulas. And as I said, many nebulas emit mostly green oxygen light. So they can respond to nebula filters, but you might think they're planetary nebulas. And there's globular clusters that look like little stars because you're looking at things that are 160,000 light years away. It's astonishing. The best, though, is the Tarantula Nebula. And that's a simulated eyepiece view there through a moderate-sized telescope. It's just this incredible writhing mass of loops and dark holes. It looks very much like a skull, but it's a tarantula. And if that nebula were as close to us as the Orion Nebula is, it would fill the entire constellation of Orion and be as bright as the full moon or something like that, whatever the analogy is. It's an enormous nebula, and you can see it with the naked eye, and it's 160,000 light years away. Seeing the Large Magellanic Cloud is worth the trip alone to the Southern Hemisphere. And that's where you do have to go into the southern sky to see the Magellanic Clouds. Just as the tropics, Caribbean aren't going to do it for you. So that's a shot of me, I think, I'm not sure, looking through one of the big knobs at Oz sky at the Magellanic Cloud. But as amazing as the telescopic views are at any Southern Hemisphere site, don't forget the big picture view, the naked eye view. Just step back and look at this. And this is our process is to make it look like a naked eye view of the Milky Way in the time of year that we showed you in March, with the center of the galaxy rising, the Carina Crux high overhead, and you want to see that big picture view of the whole Milky Way and how it's changing and moves through the night. And there's the Gegenschein over there. That's easy. That's easy down there. And here we are. There's the dark emu rising, as it's known in Australia. In South America, there's a dark llama or llama that's depicted in that part of the sky. I've never quite seen the llama up there, but in the dark emu is obvious. And here we are. This is at the Oz sky. That's the motel where we have rented out for the whole star party. And as the whole sky turns around that point, as the Magellanic Clouds set or get lower as they circle, everything's turning clockwise here. The dark emu is rising, and there's the dark emu there. And again, it's a very important part of most Aboriginal cultures. There are many, many different tribes, nations in Australia, many languages, but they all seem to have the star emu as part of their heritage there. And there she is, and rising up higher through the night. So at this time of year, you don't want to go to bed early at midnight. You want to stay up and watch and get this sight of the galactic core overhead, as we showed you at the beginning of the presentation with the planetarium show, with Scorpius straight overhead and Sagittarius straight overhead, like you've never seen it any other place or time. It's just fabulous. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at an edge-on galaxy. We all seen edge-on galaxies like this in our telescopes, very famous, popular ones. This is 891. I'm not sure which one this is, but this is taken through the Canada-France-Hawaii telescope. But that's what we're looking at, except it's not tiny in the eyepiece. It's all across the sky. And this big edge-on galaxy, complete with a big dust lane running all the way along it. And you can see from one spiral arm in Carina out to the other spiral arm in Cygnus when it gets up a little bit higher. And there's the zodiacal light coming up in the morning. So there's the view with the naked eye simulation, kind of black and white, of what you see with the galaxy core straight overhead and the whole galaxy stretched across. And we have it in the Backyard Astronomer's Guide. Terry did it many years ago, rating the wonderful sky sights on a scale of 1 to 10, and which ones rate a 10. I would say that one rates a 10, along with a total eclipse of the sun and an aurora overhead. And we've seen those, I hope. You saw one last year, I hope. And we've seen auroras overhead. People love to see that, and we take that for granted, and we get that. But we don't get what's in the middle there unless we travel. And so you got to add that to your bucket list. You've seen the auroras. You've hopefully seen a total eclipse or will, but you want to see that sight because it is fabulous. Well, we're finishing our night of observing because that is the waxing moon coming up into the evening sky. That's not a morning moon rising. That's a waxing moon in the evening sky coming up later and later, or earlier in the sky for longer and longer. So the moon is beginning to interfere with our viewing. And so time to pack up the scopes and head back into the city or whatever with the moon coming up and interfering. But even the moon upside down is a novelty for us. So that's my presentation this evening. We hope you enjoyed it of the great southern sky. That's who I am, and that's where you can reach and get in touch on my website there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, will you take questions at all, or?
If we have any questions for Alan, please let me know where you are.
If not, well, what?
Well, during the break, you can track Alan down.
All right, thank you very much. And we're gonna, forget the music here, Frank Nolberg, because we're gonna move on to something else. But I got some music for walkout. I'm a planetarium producer, so I always have to have walk in and walk out music. Yeah, Murray. Thank you, Murray. Thank you very much. I've been with Murray in the southern sky, well, once anyway, 2012, I think it was, in Australia, where we went up to far north Queensland for the solar eclipse. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Clayton.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, get our agenda back up there. We have observers group is next. I believe Murray is here. Nope. Alan going to do. Alistair.
Thank you. Marvelous presentation, Alan. I've come back, as you know, from Namibia for spending a couple of months there, and I can tell you, it's not that the Namibian skies are better than Australian skies or anything like that. It's just that being there in person is better than what you can see here. It's just it's so remarkably amazing. Every night seeing globular clusters like that float into the eyepiece field, it's
just stunning. Anyways, welcome to the Observers Group report, so to speak. So just like to welcome anyone who's getting their first views of the sky, their first views through a telescope. We've got a small group going with monthly, I guess I can click this, I hope. Yeah, here we go. So we have monthly Zoom sessions, usually the third Wednesday of every month, plus or minus a few things. And the other thing that we like to do is gather together just in small group. And it's always short notice, because if you try and do, once a month on the Friday, it's almost always cloudy. So the best thing in order to get actual skies is to just have very short notice, have a look on our Facebook page, check out the Astro email, and there'll be a sudden thing for tomorrow night, or maybe 2 nights or 3 nights away. And just bring your telescope if you're having trouble using it, can't quite figure out how the finder thing works or how to star hop. We're here to show you how to use your telescope. So here's just an example of where we were set up, just on the north side of the University of Alberta farm on 62nd Avenue off to the west. And it's a double sidewalk there. We plonk our telescopes down and look up. So one of the things to be looking for coming up anytime now, anytime as of a year ago, is anytime soon, is the blaze star T Corona Borealis. And so you're looking for this little northern crown, the semicircle of stars. And the way I always find it is off of Arcturus up. It's a big sort of capital Y shape, but you'll see in binoculars the semicircle, and it's just alpha, and then 1, 2, 3, and down or left in this case as we get into autumn skies, and that's where it'll show up. It should be brighter than any star that's in this neck of the woods, maybe not as bright as Arcturus or Vega. That's still high in the sky. So any night now, it should come forth. So we're really looking forward to that. Other thing that's coming up soon are the Orionid meteor showers. Unlike some of your news feed, it will not light up the sky. It is not a Hollywood stars streaking everywhere kind of thing. The Orion meteors are typically modestly faint. You need to be out of the city. If you're staying in the city, if you're resolute that you want to stay within the Bortle 8 skies that we have here, you might see one an hour if you're lucky. After midnight, there are 0 meteors, Orion meteors, before 11 p.m. or so, because the Earth is in the way. So it's best well after midnight. If you actually think that you want to join me for a long session overnight when Orion actually rises nicely in the sky with a deck chair and a sleeping bag to keep yourself warm. And that's even with parka, with Arctic boots, in a sleeping bag. And they come out. So keep an eye on the Facebook page and Astro List for that. One of the things I want to mention while I've got the mic is that the observers' calendars ought to be here by next month. For members, you can send me an email and I'll jot down how many calendars you want so that they'll hopefully all go quickly like they did last year. So that's a nice membership service. So it's less expensive than buying it directly. Other thing that's coming up is we just recently had a donation, a wonderful donation from Roland Noel of a C11 telescope, a bunch of accessories and books. And so I'll be listing the books and the gear on our webpage. So if you want to have a look at what might be a good deal for books or gear, have a look at that. Some of the books I'll be keeping off to the side and bringing them to the observing basics groups to lend out to some of our new observers, things like star hopping, Terence Dickinson's Night Watch, and then the one co-written with Alan Dyer, Backyard Astronomer's Guide. So we can share those around as we do our observing, and you can sort of take one home for a month or so and read. So that's it. So thank you very much. Hope to see you out observing.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, so just before the break, I'll put up the trivia slide and we can see what we have for the trivia question. First one should be pretty easy. If you were to create a list with 88 entries in alphabetical order, starting with Andromeda and going to about Vulpecula, what would you be listing? Which German astronomer contributed an important discovery to the history of optometry by describing how light entered the eye? The third oldest astronomical clock in the world was first installed in 1410 in what city in the heart of Europe? And what small dark stars, also known as failed stars, are those not massive enough to sustain nuclear fusion of hydrogen into helium? Okay, we'll take a quick 10-minute break and we'll get back with the announcements. Welcome back, everybody. So we go to the announcements for today. We have Susan Bram, who's going to give us an NPFP update. That's, by all sounds of it, was a very successful event for this year. And if we can get the PowerPoint going here.
I do have T-shirts for people that ordered them and didn't pick them up at the Star Party. If Todd is here, please see me after the meeting, because I have 2 for you and I have others as well. So anyway. So what we'll do this in reverse. We'll have Marion come up. We are so grateful to Murray Paulson, who this year created 3 new observing lists with some great little twists in them. And we had many of the attendees at the Star Party take the list, and we had 5 that were submitted. So would you like to award the certificates to those that had submitted them?
Certainly. Not sure if everyone is here this evening, but so one of the activities that has become a standard of the Northern Prairie Star Party is to do an activity of doing the observing list. So this was an all new number of lists this year. And for the level 1, we had Sukrit Alawalia. Are you here tonight? Doesn't look
I'm
like
not
it.
there, but I am
Okay.
online.
And Tamara Mackey. Excellent. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was, did you enjoy
My first time.
your first time? Excellent. That got you started. Maybe level 2 next year. And for level 2, we have Carol Mussel. And I had a lot of fun looking through Carol's telescope as she was doing this, because I was kind of busy and didn't get the whole list done myself. Carol? Well, there you are.
Thanks.
And also Kelly Devlin. Is Kelly here tonight?
No.
No, okay. And last but not least, the level 3 lists was Luca Vanzella was the only one that got through that and submitted it. You're welcome. So, yes.
And again, Murray, thank you so very much for the terrific list that you put together this year. And I know we had people ask for the levels above what they were doing because they want to still work on them. So real big thank you to you for that effort. So now we have, I'm just going to give you a few facts and figures about the Northern Prairie Star Party. So it was just over 2 weeks ago that we had the Northern Prairie Star Party out at Black Nugget Lake. It was our 21st year, and from the 16th to the 21st, so Tuesday to Sunday. We had 5 great days of really summertime weather. It got up to about 26 on the Saturday in our big tent, so it was a little bit warm in there. We had fans and we had breaks between speakers to help deal with that. And 4 clear nights, and even the 5th clear night, as Luke noted, wasn't a complete write-off, and we were able to see some things on the cloudier night too. We reserved 20 campsites, as we always do, in the northern part of the campsite, and these were all booked well in advance of the event, and over 45 people camped for all 5 nights out there. A total of 104 attended this year. That's our record. We had 2 Friday workshops. Alan Dyer did a fabulous workshop on nightscape photography. 44 people attended that. And Clayton Knoll, our president, came out and did the 2nd or 3rd year of green laser pointer certification in the visitor center, and we had 8 people attend that. Saturday morning on the big tent, things were set up for swap and shop. Alan said, as he did, he brought a lot of equipment with him, as other people did, and you'll see some photos of that in the slideshow that is after my facts and figures here. We had 4 presentations on Saturday in the big tent. Lots of good feedback on the variety. We had Luca Vanzella and Kent Martins, our own members, talking about the BNLO and plane wave, respectively. We had Wang Jin Chen talk about supermassive black holes, and Alan rounded out the afternoon with a fabulous talk on auroras. It was just great. Luca Vanzella and the BNLO operating team, we had a roster of 18 people viewing every night. The big feature for this year was the transit of Saturn by Titan on Friday night. BNLO was also open on Saturday for daytime tours. We had sky tours both Friday and Saturday nights, and lots of viewing and mixing and mingling of people as they walked around and looked through others' telescopes as well. This year we had 35 door prizes, really great ones, including $1,200 in cash prizes. So that was a real hit. And of course, we had our barbecue and our group photo and lots of visiting and camaraderie. We had a lot of new people come to this event this year. We had the observing list, as we've talked about, from Murray Paulson. And also we had many great on the spot volunteers, 47 in total. And I'll have a list that we can just show you. Now, our costs for this year were a bit higher because we had more people. The cost for tents and food had gone up. And so our costs were $11,242. That's preliminary. We have a few more things to come in. That's for the campsites that we reserved, tent rental, the t-shirts, honoraria, and food. And the revenues from attendees were $8,597. So the total cost to the RASC Edmonton Center was $2,545, some of which comes out of our casino fund of the eligible funds that can come out. A detailed report on our event, including a list of feedback and details of the speakers' talks and so on, is in the Stardust for this month. It was posted yesterday. So for any further details, you can certainly go and have a look there with some photos. I mentioned we had a great volunteer participation. It was amazing. And I would like to acknowledge, and I don't know, Frank, if you can put the lights up for a second. I would like to acknowledge the planning team and those that work around the clock, or not around the clock, but around the year on this event. Dave and Carol Mussel, you could stand up. And Marion and Alan Hobbs. Rick Bram, my husband. And also Jeff Whiten keeps an eye on us with all of our expenses and revenues. Where's Jeff? Yes. And our team also always includes our president, and this year, of course, is Clayton. And Luca Vanzella is a partner with us in all of this because he's the chair of the operating committee for BNLO. So that's kind of the core team. And then on top of that, in alpha order by first name, we have all these people listed. Abder, Alistair, Amanda, Alexander, Barbara, Barton, Bob, and Brian. Craig, Daisy, Dan, Darren, Denis, and Denise. Frank, Jerry, John, Catherine, and Christine. Laura and Al, Maddie, Marion, Mike, Murray, two Murrays. Ray, two Rays, Ray and Ray. Rosemary, Stephen and Sukrit, Tamara, Vince, and Zaid. So a big thank you to everyone who had so much fun at this year's event. The feedback from this year's event, we got a 40% response rate to the households that we emailed out to. So it was very positive on the workshops and the Saturday speakers. The sense of camaraderie and community. There's a great picture of Darren and Mike with their RASC ball caps that they won as part of the door prizes. BNO viewing, we had a roster and a skeleton crew for the Tuesday through Thursday, and then a full crew of operators for Friday and Saturday, and the sky tours that happened on Friday night. The barbecue was well appreciated, and the door prizes were as well. We had lots of good suggestions, particularly from those that came out to Black Nugget Lake in our event for the first time, particularly around what to expect at the campground and how to get there and that kind of thing. So those will be very helpful for us for next year. And we had a number of different kinds of suggestions for presentations for next year. Alan, people loved your presentations. They look for more of the how-to sessions around post-processing of astrophotos. Also suggestions around talking a bit more about astronomy outreach tips and stories. A couple of other more specific topics around radio astronomy in Canada, the moons of our solar system. So we're going to work on those suggestions and others, and Sharon's a great partner in us finding speakers for next year. But if you still have any ideas, please talk to any of us on the team. We'd be happy to consider them. Mark your calendars for next year. It's Tuesday, September 8th to Sunday, September 13th. That's the Tuesday right after Labor Day next year. And finally, just the acknowledgements. Our speakers, as I mentioned, the door prize donors, All-Star Telescope, McBain Camera, Chris Meerveld, Fervent Astronomy, David Astro, Astronomy Plus, Telescopes Canada. Telescopes Canada, by the way, is a new participant, and they provided two $200 gift certificates. And RASC Edmonton provided some of the, we've got some calendars that we were giving away, as well as the ball caps. Mike Zelowicki had a cool prize for people, and as well as Doug Hube had two historic first issues. What weren't they? First issue stamps from the Mercury mission. So those were all great prizes and much appreciated by everybody. Dave Mussel kept up our website. Rick Bram provided the shirt design of the Aurora for this year. Piece of Cake Wedding and Event Planning out of Vermilion were the tent providers. Luca was the coordinator on the BNLO. Ray Weens was the event photographer. And of course, this event is done in collaboration with Beaver County, and the Black Nugget Lake Park operator, Stacy Ratrud. So we are really happy with the event. In fact, we had so many registrations coming towards the end after the deadline that we had to simply say we can't take anymore. And that was because we were concerned about having to deal with the cars coming in and out in the evening and where we would park them. So the campsite does have limitations and we are aware of them, but I think everything worked out fairly well for this year. So I'm just going to do with the official acknowledgement logos for this, our event. And then our event photographer, Ray Weens, has sent me a slideshow. And Ray is unfortunately not able to be here tonight, but we're going to end with the collage of photos from our event for this year. So thanks for everybody's support, and we look forward to hosting another one next year.
Thanks, Susan and Marion, for that little update. Great. Okay. October 4th, Saturday night, was International Observe the Moon Night. It was an international event, and we had some plans to have the deck open and some extra telescopes out there. Until around noon on Friday, we get an email from Frank telling us that the Telus World of Science would be closed at 5 p.m. and all power in the park would be turned off, which meant there was no way to get the deck open and run the computerized telescope. So a few of us decided that we would show up and try to set up in the parking lot, because we figured people would have read the website for Telus World of Science, realizing that it's going to be closed and therefore would not come out to view the moon. And so what we did was we had Dan Kulak, John Woolley, and myself. Unbeknownst to us, Alistair was also there, but on a different part of the property. We didn't see each other. But anyway, the three of us, we set up on the parking lot along 111th Avenue, figuring that, okay, we put some signs out on 111th Avenue. We would be on the parking lot with our scope set up. People would see it, and then they would come in and visit. So that was the plan. And of course, all plans have some problems, but ours kind of went well. So there, the moon, it started out very cloudy. And at 9 o'clock, according to the clear sky chart, it was going to clear up, and sure enough, it did. And we got some great shots. There's our large crowd of viewing of the moon. We had a total of 8 people showing up, which was, we didn't need any crowd control, but it did work out quite well. Unfortunately, 2 of the people in that were the astronomers that we had come out with. So there's only actually 3 public members there. So overall, the course of the night, we had 8, and again, really 7 because Rosemary was there as well. So I think Alistair said he had 4 people show up at his location. So maybe a baker's dozen if we get lucky. So it was definitely a little disappointing. But as you can see, there's where we were located. Even 111th Avenue lost some of their street lights when they turned the power off. So we had a pretty dark sky there, mortal late, but it was not bad. And as you can see, that lower deck of clouds disappeared probably within a half hour of that photo, and we had a beautiful, clear night. It was so good. The transparency, the sky was, the air was still. We got some great views of Saturn as well. It was just one of the best nights I've seen for a very good sky. Okay, Frank, we can go back. Okay, the next meeting will be on November 10th, will be members night. And it's also a very special night. It will be the 150th edition of the Astro Imaging Corner. And I understand we have some special events set up for that, which Tom will talk about in a little while. But next on the list is the Book of the Month Club, actually Books of the Month. When I got the information from both Mark and Rosemary, they each had a book. That's the one that Mark is going to talk about. But we're going to postpone that one till next month since he's away ill tonight. And we'll get Rosemary to come up and do her book.
Thank you. Before I do the book, I'm going to do the librarian thing. Please return your books. They're all overdue, every one of them. And we're really working hard on refreshing this library, and we're close to reshelving the entire thing. You're going to be seeing about 100 new books on the shelves when we finally get it going. We need to allocate our shelf space, and I'd really like to have all the books back to do that. We're not going to be loaning any books this time. Next time in November, hopefully it'll be ready. And then before Christmas, there'll be an online catalog. So for the book for this month is Interesting, A City on Mars. And I'll start with just a reference to this book, The Case for Mars, a 1997 book, The Plan to Settle the Red Planet and Why We Must. And it was a very interesting book to look at. It's endorsed by Buzz Aldrin, and Arthur C. Clarke wrote the foreword to it. And it's very much how soon can we get there? And I'm sure there's no obstacles we can overcome. It was very much boosterism and doesn't hold up well given what's happened in the last 25 years. Then we get A City on Mars. Can we settle space? Should we settle space? Have we really thought this through? It's a very engaging popular science read. And what they do is it's written by a bioscientist and a comic. And so it's really lighthearted, very, very easy to read. And it looks at some of the technical stuff, but more the bigger picture. So we were supposed to be, according to the first book, we were supposed to be on Mars by the end of last century. Elon Musk said we'd be on it 2011 in 10 years. Now he's saying during his lifetime. But the question is, who's going to go? Right now, astronauts are very elite humans, and they're quite superhuman, and they're well trained for what they do. Well, when we go to Mars, we're not all going to be a bunch of superhumans. So who's going to go? How are we going to get there? What's going to happen when we're there? There's 3 information streams in the book: the whole human biology and reproduction and ecology, the idea of international law and geopolitics, sociology, and economics. In the human factors, like, it's very lighthearted, even though it's quite a serious subject. It talks about what's going to happen if human reproduction is not possible on Mars when we're colonizing it. And then we can think about, we've got a society in which is constantly reliant on newcomers because it's not self-sustaining. What would that look like as far as an actual society moving ahead? What about different people with different objectives? And some things were really caught my eye, my mind, where what if the kids born there don't have the skills or the ability to do what's needed to do to stay on Mars? We could get into the scarcity issues, and then we get into eugenics, and we get into maybe even Soylent Green, depending what happens with some extreme situations. The international law, right now we're in a period of great upheaval internationally. And what will it be like on Mars? And what are we going to have as far as a kind of government and so on? So there's some serious stuff, but it's really lighthearted and lots of fun anecdotes. Stories you'll learn about the lives of astronauts. They are compulsive liars, apparently, and they'll say whatever they need to say to get into space, which I thought was interesting. So the book will make you think about, what are we doing? Should we really go to Mars at all? And if we do get there, what are we going to do? And Andy Weir wrote on here, scientific, educational, and fun as hell. And I agree. I hope somebody takes out the book of the month this month. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, next up, we have Tom Owen and Astro Imaging Corner. I hope you're here, Tom.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great.
Okay, so.
Okay, you are on the screen.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody to the Astro Imaging Corner number 149. I'm your host, Tom Owen. First of all, apologies to all who submitted multiple photos. I received so many, I had to limit the pics to 2 to a customer. We had 13 contributors submitting images this month. That's the spirit. Keep them coming. So let's move on to our first image. Okay, let's move on to our first image. There we go. So this is Yusuf Hussein's photo of city skyline. And he wrote me and said, "Hi, Tom. With Alan Dyer presenting on Monday, I thought I would try and take some of the lessons from MPSP and attempt to apply them." The attached image was captured on October 1st, 2025, from just off Riverside Drive in Edmonton. It's actually a composite image of 3 images, one for the foreground showing the fall colors in the trees, one for the city downtown buildings, and one for the night sky. While there was no special event in the sky, this was designed to be a test of Alan's teachings, and I was happy to see Auriga and Taurus with the Pleiades and some of Perseus coming through in the night sky. So the equipment used was a Canon RA camera with a Canon EF 15-35 f2.8 lens, shot at 35 millimeter focal length. And he said, "Well, I'm not 100% happy with the image. I thought it would be nice to show Alan step 1 in practice. Just after this was photographed," he says, "the aurora came in." Which is a nice segue to Daisy Alvarez, who captured this image of the aurora. And she says, "Hi, Tom. I snapped a few aurora shots on September 14th, but this one with a square-shaped formation really stands out." And it really does. I've never seen anything like that before. So good job, Daisy. Speaking of aurora, this is a painting by Stephen Portillo. And he says, "Hi, Tom. Here's a submission for this month's Astro Imaging Corner. This is an acrylic on canvas painting that I did in a City of Edmonton class taught by Frank Haddock inspired by a photograph I took of the aurora from Blackfoot on April 4th, 2025. And I had a little, he wanted me to say something about it, to tell him what I thought of it. And I said, I thought it looked really great. Thought the brush strokes and the whole image of it shows that the aurora is not cutesy, it's actually wild, just like the setting. And so I thought he really did a great job with this painting. Here's a beautiful shot of the moon by Josephine Christensen. She took this October 5th with a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. And it's a single photo. It's handheld. It's edited a bit in Lightroom phone app and Snapseed phone app. She wasn't sure about the tree, but she likes it. And I like it too. Great job, Josephine. Speaking of the moon, I've got a couple of shots from Al Pankratz. The first is Clavius and the Southern Highlands. And he says, just above center is the second largest crater on the visible moon, Clavius, with a diameter of around 230 kilometers. Clavius hosts a chain of ever smaller craters inside it, starting with Rutherford on its southern rim and arcing counterclockwise through the center and then to the southwest rim. This chain can be used to test the resolving power of telescopes. And he adds, movie fans may recall that Clavius is also the home of a fictitious lunar base and Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. And those of us of a certain age will never forget that. Here's his shot of Tycho and Delandre. The bright crater below and left of center is Tycho, one of the youngest craters on the moon at only 108 million years old, with a diameter of 85 kilometers. Because of its relative youth, its features are well defined, and at full moon, one can see a dark halo around the rim, as well as extremely bright rays extending for long distances from the impact site. In contrast, the large degraded crater at the top left corner of the image is Delandres. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Almost 3 times the diameter of Tycho, it is the third largest crater on the visible moon. Its battered state and rounded rim are clues to its age at over 3.9 billion years. Also of interest is the smaller crater Lexell, which lies inside the southeast rim of Delandre, and which has tilted to such an extent that its northern rim has been largely buried by lavas or ejecta from other impacts. So the imaging process for both of these images was that they were created from video taken with an 8-inch Edge HD scope and a ASI 2600 Pro camera. They were processed in Planetary System Stacker using the best 10% of 1320 frames and then adjusted with Affinity Photo 2. The video was shot at 9:30 in the morning, almost 2.5 hours after sunrise on September the 14th. Those are really great shots. So this is from Ray, and this is a moon and Venus landscape. He says this was shot with a Sony A7RV and a Sony 24mm f1.4 shot, and it was shot at f1.4 at 1/25th of a second. It's handheld. Well, that's just a gorgeous, gorgeous shot. And here is the close-up. I think you saw it in the presentation about MPSP. He also submitted it to me. He says this was shot with a ZWO 2600 APS-C, that's the size of the sensor, through a William Optics 132mm with 65 subs at 120 seconds and a Bortle 1-2 Sky, stacked in AstroPixel processor and processed in Lightroom. And that is also a stunning shot. I love the earth shine. This is from Warren Finley. This is Lake Louise at 3 a.m. Lake Louise at 3 a.m. is a single capture of this iconic view illuminated by moonlight at 3 a.m. in September. It's a 20-second shot at ISO 3200, taken with a Canon R6 and a 14mm lens at f1.8. During the day, this view probably had 1,000 people along the shore, many of them posing for photos on the rocks you can see in the foreground. Given the popularity of the spot, I was surprised to be the only one there at 3 a.m. Well, I'm not, but I think that's a gorgeous shot. So this is another Milky Way shot from Brian Martin from the Neutral Hills. And he says, late summer nightscape of the Milky Way setting over the Neutral Hills in eastern Alberta. He says, note that the color of the night sky is gray to gray-green as a result of air glow. And the Milky Way is dominated by warm yellow, orange, and brown tones, not blue, as is often shown in similar shots on the web. So great shot and point taken. I really like the wheat in the foreground too. The colors are perfect. So this is from Mark Zalchik, and this is Alpha Capricorni, otherwise known as Algady. And he said to me, I would like to submit this picture of the double star Alpha Capricorni. Here is the description. In the evening skies this time of year, if you look below and to the left of the constellation Aquila, you can see the zodiac constellation Capricornus with its quaint double star Alpha Capricorni or Algety. The stars are visible in the upper center of this image, springing up from the other brighter star Beta Capricorni below it, like two little horns of the sea goat. The double stars are not related and have magnitudes of 3.7 and 4.2, with a separation of 381 arc seconds, making them the third widest pair of double stars in the sky behind Mizar and Alcor and Ursa Major and Delta Lyrae. The photo was taken with a zoom lens at 180 millimeters, f5.6 with a 2-second exposure at ISO 3200. Very, very interesting, Mark. And if anybody has star shots, bring them on. This is from Gary Shillabeer. This is, of course, NGC 7000. He took this at the Northern Prairie Star Party, and it's 33-minute subs, no calibration frames. He was using a Teleview NP101IS, ASI 2600 MC Duo. His capture computer was an ASI Air Plus. He used an ASI E electronic focuser, and the mount was an ASI AM5. And all photos were processed with Deep Sky Stacker and Star Tools. And that's a great shot. And I love the orientation. This is a sketch of NGC 7000 by Warren Finley. And he says, this is a sketch I did of the North American Nebula in September under Bortle 2 skies at Blood Indian Park in a 10-inch Dobsonian scope with a 26-millimeter OVNI eyepiece with an OVNI nebula filter. I used soft white pastel brushed onto black paper and a white pencil for the stars. The nebula didn't fit in the field of view, so I moved the scope around while sketching to draw the entire continent, which is a feat in itself. And this is a really great sketch. I'm a big fan of sketches. Bring them on. This is the Elephant Trunk Nebula from Alan Hobbs. He says, IC 1396 is a large emission nebula, a region of ionized gas, located in the constellation Cepheus, about 2,400 light years away from Earth. Jutting from the rim of the nebula is IC 1396A, commonly called the Elephant's Trunk Nebula, a dark, dense globule with a bright, sinuous rim being illuminated by HD 206267. The astrophoto was taken at BNLO on August 24th, 2025. There are 60 subs of 120 seconds, so a total integration time of 120 minutes. The astrophoto was taken with my RASA 8 and ZWO ASI 2600 MC camera with an Optolong L-enhanced filter on a Skywatcher EQ6R Pro mount with guiding, processed with PixInsight and Photoshop. And I love the contrast in this photo. It's very unusual and it's very striking. So good job. This is another contribution from Gary Shillabeer. This is, of course, this is the Bubble Nebula, which you can see right at the center. And it was also taken at the Northern Prairie Star Party. 60 3-minute light frame, so 180 minutes, 3 hours. Again, no calibration frames. He was using with a an Antlia ALPT dual band 5nm narrowband filter in both HA and O3, and the same setup that he used with the other photo of the North American, which was the Teleview NP101IS 2600 MC Duo, the ASI Air Plus capture computer, the ASI electronic focuser, and an ASI AM5 mount. And he really did a great job capturing all the nebulosity around in the vicinity of the Bubble Nebula. This is the Fossil Footprint Nebula from Yusuf Hussein, who started us off tonight. It says, attached is an image of the sky around the Fossil Footprint Nebula, SH2 206, NGC 1491. Also in the image is SH2 209, just left of center, and part of the M&M double cluster to the far left. The Fossil Footprint Nebula is an emission nebula located at about 9,800 to 10,700 light years. And he says the difference in estimates is Wikipedia versus Stellarium. In the constellation Perseus. It was first discovered by William Herschel in 1790. The data was actually captured in October 2024 over 3 nights from October 9th to 14th. This is my first successful attempt at performing all processing within PixInsight, and then he adds almost. I've been attempting to process different objects I've captured with limited success for the last year in PixInsight and decided to finally try again with this target. Some new videos were uploaded by the PixInsight team, which helped. Previously, most of my processing was Deep Sky Stacker to Stack and Photoshop Topaz Denoise AI for processing. So he used 30 minutes in luminance, 48 minutes each in RGB, and 10 hours of HA. And he used a Skywatcher Esprit 120 triplet refractor on an EQ6R Pro mount. The camera was an ASI 6200 millimeter camera with an ASI 174 mini guiding camera. Astrodon filters, the best, were used in both broadband and narrowband. Again, as he says, it was stacked and processed in PixInsight, and a final step to enhance denoise performed in Topaz Photo AI. A great photo, Yusuf. This is the Tulip Nebula from Hans, and he says the Tulip Nebula in Hans, which is obviously what it is, but it shows a second feature, which is the bow shock of the black hole Cygnus X1. And I'm going to take you to the next. It's a beautiful photograph. I'm going to take you to the next photo, which shows the bow shock in greater detail. There it is. So he says the bow shock generated when a jet of high energy particles emitted from the black hole collides with dense interstellar gas. The black hole is invisible, of course, but its companion star, a 9th magnitude blue supergiant, is easily seen. And there's the arrow pointing to it. And since the two are separated by only 2.2 AU, this is also essentially the location of the black hole. The exposure time for this was 4 hours in RGB and 22.5 hours with dual narrowband filters and Altair HA/O3 and S2/O3. And the latter was processed in the Hubble palette, which maps red to sulfur, green to hydrogen alpha, and blue to O3. He imaged this with his ASI 2600 MC Pro, and everything was controlled with Nina software. The location was his Bortle 7-8 backyard in Sherwood Park, and all the processing was done in PixInsight. So remarkable photo, Hans. Now, Brian has contributed this. This is, I think it says this is M31 with SPCC applied. He says, this is a pretty standard shot of M31, 1 hour total integration with the ZWO ASI 294 MC OSC taken on September 24th with the stellar view 70 millimeter at f4.8 on an AM5 mount. The purpose is to show how tools like spectrophotometric color calibration, provide more accurate depictions of the color of galaxies and other celestial objects, and how this can better be used to inform color choices made when taking nightscapes. In any event, it's a gorgeous picture of Andromeda. So this is the galaxy cluster Abel 347, which is right around here. And then you've got the large edge-on spiral galaxy NGC 891 and Andromeda. Now, if you go to the Edmonton Center Facebook page, you'll also see this photo, along with a Guide 9 chart of the field of view in this image, listing many of the galaxies which are shown here. And it was supplied by longtime rascal Larry Wood. Thank you, Larry. It's very helpful. So NGC 891 is approximately 30 million years distant. But these little guys are approximately 240 million years distant, light years distant. And I suppose I could have cropped it more to focus in on it, but something just stopped me. I kept seeing galaxies all over this image, and I just said, nope, I'm just going to leave it like this. And if you're looking at it through a cell phone, sorry. But I just want to point something out. And if you look right up here, this peculiar little thing that looks like a donut, I don't know if you can see it there, but that is, it's called a ring galaxy. It's UGC 1840/PGC 9060. And the reason it looks like that is these two galaxies collided and one punched a hole through the nucleus of the other. And here I am picking it up in my TSA 120 from Pigeon Lake, 240 million light years away. I just think that's remarkable, and that's why we do this kind of thing, because we can just make the invisible become visible. I took it on the morning of September 23rd using a ZWO 2600 MC camera with the aforesaid Takahashi TSA 120 telescope and a TOA 130R focal reducer. It's 4 hours of 3-minute subs with darks, flats, and dark flats, and it was stacked with Deep Sky Stacker and processed using star tools. So this is where you can send your images. Go to the RASC Edmonton Center website, and if you remember, please submit your image. I want to see C-star images. Where are you? I know you're out there. And let's bring it on. Let's take a look at them. Let's see how you're doing. One thing Clayton mentioned was, as I mentioned, this is the 149th edition. Next in November will be the 150th. And since we've been doing 10 of these every year, 2 months off for the summer, that means that Astro Imaging Corner has been operating for 15 years. And we're going to try and get the previous hosts to come on, probably virtually. I know I'm going to be virtual with it. And we're going to try to go through the images of the last 15 years and see if we can pick out the 15 best ones. A Herculean task, but we'll see how we do. And so it will be, we hope, a special edition of and a celebration of all of the wonderful pictures that all of our members have taken over the last 15 years. So that's my presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tom. Looking forward to November's 150th edition of Astro Imaging Corner. Okay, so we'll get to the trivia answers as soon as Frank can get our agenda back up. Okay, first one is quite easy, and the answer to a list of 88 entries in alphabetical order would be the constellations. German astronomer who contributed to optometry was Johann Kepler. The third oldest astronomical telescope or astronomical clock in the world was installed in Prague. And a small dark star as a failed star is known as a brown dwarf. Okay, if we go back to final announcements. Okay, click on the cartoon of the month and not too bad. It's just taking another picture. Maybe that's what we're seeing from Mars and NASA's being duped. Who knows? Okay, back to final announcement. Okay, next meeting is on Monday, November 10th, and I double checked that on the website, so there should be no mistake there. 7:30, and again, and that's Mountain Standard Time, because November 2nd is we lose daylight saving time, so yay. And we go back to Mountain Standards. So as I said, the big event will be the 150th edition of the Astro Imaging Corner. And we will be doing a members night. And due to the transporter malfunction last month, Alex Turner was unable to attend, but he will be back. We got the transporter fixed, so he will return next month to do his presentation. So looking for 2 more volunteers to step forward and be prepared to give about a 20-minute presentation on the 10th of November. So thank you for attending tonight, and we'll see you next month.